Hello everyone and welcome back to Knit Chocolate Pearls. Today's video will be a review of Paintbox Aran weight yarn in acrylic. I'm wearing some on my head right now, but before we get to the colour palettes, I'm just going to tell you that Paintbox Aran comes in 100g balls. There are 184 metres or 201 yards per ball. It's 100% acrylic and it's an in-house brand, so the only place you can buy it from is Lovecrafts. It's their own brand, in-house. If you buy it anywhere else, know you're buying from a reseller. It retails for £2.60 per ball, or it's often on sale for around £1.69. So without wasting any more time, let's get on to the projects. So the first project I'm going to show you is the hat I've just taken off my head. This is in the colour Daffodil and it's actually my favourite colour from the entire palette. It does come with an extensive colour range, although not all of the colours blend that well together. So if you're looking for a temperature blanket, you might find that the colours are slightly off at times. I wouldn't personally use it for something like that. But for things like beanie hats, simple projects, especially for things like stripes or just a one colour block project, it's very good. I did this hat crocheted it with just some front post double crochets just all the way up to the top and just the simple rib around the bottom. Nothing too difficult. I found that it split quite a lot for this particular project, but not excessively. Now this has been washed probably about 10 or more times, just thrown in the washing machine and stuck on the line. As you can see, it's quite stiff, so it doesn't lose shape easily. It has stretched out a bit. If you look, it's not very fuzzy. It's surprisingly unfuzzy, and especially for Paintbox. I often find that Paintbox itself can be quite fuzzy and hairy at times. It can shed quite a lot, but this one didn't. And here's the vest in the colour Daffodil. Now this project I made far too big for me. It was one of the first garments I ever made, and for some reason I made it in like a large or extra large, and I'm a small extra small, so I don't know what I was thinking. I think it was just the measurements of the pattern. Anyway, this has been washed a couple of times. It has never been blocked. It's retained its shape. If you look, it does look nice quality. That's something I will say about this yarn, is when it's made into a garment, a large one, rather than a small one, it does look like quite decent quality. It still looks like budget acrylic, but it's nice and it washes quite well. And I will say not all of the colours wash this well. Some of the lighter ones in particular, like white and pink, don't wash this well. You can see there's a relatively minimal amount of fuzzies, there's no snapping. It does snag a little bit, it does split slightly, however I think it depends more so on the colour. Like the yellow hardly snags at all, however the lighter colours, like I said, they snag constantly. So be aware of that, be aware that sometimes it's more so to do with the colour than it is to do with the yarn itself. I think it's just the way it's processed. Overall, it's very comfortable to crochet with and I would recommend it. The only thing I will say is it's not at all breathable. Now this here, the lighting's changed because I'm using natural light behind me. This is pretty accurate to what it looks like in real life. It's almost like a slightly egg yolk yellow, but not quite as orange as a full yolk. Very lovely warm toned yellow. This is, like I said, my favourite colour from the palette. Meet my beautiful arch nemesis, because this is the Daffodil colour yarn. This is a beautiful crochet jumper. It looks absolutely lovely on. You can probably tell it's been folded and crumpled in the wardrobe since last summer. I've worn this 2 or 3 times, but oh my god, I wish it was more comfortable. The problem with Paintbox yarn is when you crochet it, it's absolutely unbreathable. Even with these holes, I thought, oh, it's not going to be too hot. I wore it on a warm but windy summer's day. When the wind stopped, I was boiling, and I mean like I was being cooked alive in a plastic bag. But the moment the wind blew, it went straight through these holes and I was frozen, literally shivering in the sunshine, and it must have been 20 degrees or something when I was wearing it. I went from baking hot to shivering in seconds. It's just, there's no temperature control whatsoever, so do beware if you make this. Knitting it over crocheting it's going to be better. It's going to have better temperature control. Acrylic yarn can be like that anyway, but my goodness, I've worn a lot of acrylics and this one is by far the worst for the temperature. Extremely hot. This has been washed a few times, it's been worn out and about, it's still in good quality. No problems with it at all really, aside from that temperature. It looks lovely. I really enjoyed this pattern as well. I made this a bit too big because I wanted it to be oversized. I think I made this in a medium and it actually fits quite well. This was a good pattern, to be honest, and it was a free pattern. If I can remember it, I'll link it below. But yeah, this was really nice. I didn't do much of a collar on it, I just did my own thing there. Very pleased with the way it turned out. Not at all pleased with how baking hot it leaves you though, so I want to wear this again, but I'm kind of put off for that reason alone. Now for this one you might be thinking, that's a cool cushion cover. It's not, it's a vest. And in this one it's only the daffodil that is the Paintbox yarns. Now I just wanted to say, because this one has a little bit of Stylecraft, you can see, hopefully the camera focuses, you can see the difference between the textures. Stylecraft is very soft, it's very silky, and there's less texture in the winding in comparison to Paintbox. I can feel them here. And this one is much denser, it's tougher, it's not as soft or as silky compared to Stylecraft, which feels like it has a lot more flexibility to the yarn. Now this is another one of those vests that I made far too large for me. But either way, it's a very good example of knitted Paintbox. I'm sorry if you hear my floorboards creaking. You can see that although I've held it two strands together, it's very defined. The winding in the stitches is so defined, it's so obvious, it makes it look quite chunky and cheap. Although it's comfortable to knit with and it is quite soft, it's quite heavy, it's good and warm for winter and it washes well. I don't personally like the texture and I don't like how stiff this yarn is. In comparison to a lot of acrylic yarn, it feels tough. I'm having to put more effort into stretching it than I would like. Now the pink is not Paintbox, by the way, that is just Stylecraft, so we'll be ignoring that. It was good to work with, like I said, but my issue with this yarn is mostly the texture and the stiffness of it. If that's something that bothers you, I would recommend not doing it. But like with knitting, it usually makes yarn softer, it makes them flow better. So if you prefer yarn that is soft, that is flowy, then I would not recommend crocheting with this. I would recommend knitting. Now here is another one of those vests in that same navy blue as the scarf. Honestly, it's coming up quite nicely on camera. It's looking a little brighter than it is in person, but I'm relying on the daylight. Very nice. These crochet stitches, like with the first one, the daffodil, disguise that texture a little bit. Definitely go to the size it recommends or one down, because that's going to help you make this project look a little bit more expensive if that's something you want. Now, what I will say is this hasn't been washed and it has a lot of fuzzies. For some reason this colour is a lot fuzzier. It's been sitting on top of my wardrobe, so it's probably a bit dusty. I'm probably going to offer this to my mum and dad because for some reason, again, I made this in a medium and it's huge on me. I don't know why when I was in this era of making these things I just wouldn't make my own size. Let me know in the comments below if you're like that. If I'm past it now, but I just don't understand it, to be honest. Like, what on earth was I thinking? I made these projects, spent all the time on them and couldn't wear them. But anyway, this vest itself cost me like £9 or £10 to make because it didn't take very much yarn, surprisingly. So it's very good if you wanted to make a nice, like a budget, a waistcoat, a vest, a jumper, some accessories like this scarf. This yarn is going to be really good for you. It's going to offer you a nice looking quality project that you can throw in the washing machine, throw on the line. It's going to be tough. It is acrylic though, so beware if you're someone who's bothered about sustainability or you're concerned about microplastics, that sort of thing, then I would definitely avoid it. Otherwise, you can definitely get some nice projects out of it. You can definitely get some nice quality items out of it. Is it the best quality acrylic yarn? Absolutely not, but for the price it's not too bad at all. Now this is another example of something I knitted with Paintbox yarn. It knits up much better than it crochets. It's very soft and it's a little bit more breathable. However, I will say about it that this colour for me personally just doesn't look right on me. It washes me out. Blues, cool tones don't tend to work that well. I will say though it was quite an easy, comfortable knit. It's nice. You can throw it in the washing machine. It knits up well. It washes quite well. I would say that if you're looking for a budget yarn, especially a stiffer budget yarn, this is something that would be very good for you. On sale, this yarn, like I said, is £1.69, and if you wanted to make something like this, took me one ball. If you wanted to just make one of these long tapering scarves just to tie around your neck to add something to an outfit, perfect. If you wanted it for a gift, absolutely perfect. Because look, it does look nice. If I said to you that costs £1.69, would you say that looks like it costs £1.69? Probably not, but you can still see that annoying texture that bothers me personally. Now here we have a couple of unblocked, unbound granny squares. These are in the colours Rose Red, Candy Floss and Paper White. I'm making a blanket at the moment, but these are the ones that I chose not to use because I didn't like these combinations. Anyway, these were made with a 5mm hook as recommended. Like I said, they haven't been washed and there's definitely some slight pilling, some tufts coming off of them. Now I will work with a little bit of yarn just to show you, but this is my main issue with the yarn. Like I said with the projects, you can see so much texture in the winding, it really bothers me. I don't like how much you can see. I don't like that it makes the yarn split more. I don't like that it makes the yarn look a lot cheaper, because honestly these could look a lot nicer. But then again, it is budget yarn, so that's fair enough. But personally, I'm not a fan. You see it, it's just something I can't get past. It puts me off using this yarn, and this yarn is quite stiff. You do have to use a little bit more tension with your fingers than with some of the other yarns. It's not difficult to work with at all, but I'm just doing some half double crochets in a magic ring. I'm sorry if you can hear any children shouting outside. Very fuzzy, very textured. I'm just going to chain 2 and I'll do some double crochets, just for an example of what you can do with the yarn. I think I'll just do 2 singles as well. I mean, it's decent. Let's pull it back. That is something I will say about this yarn, is it pulls back very easily with minimal snagging. You can definitely feel the pop, pop, pop of each individual stitch, and I think that is part of the benefit of it being a denser yarn, is that you can just pull it back and it comes back cleanly. That's something I really like, because one of my reviews before with the Papacha Angora, it's impossible to pull it back. It's very good if you need to pull part of a project back, if you need to redo any part of it, or you want to change stitches. It's very simple. It is easy when you're chaining sometimes to accidentally go through these. They're not too bad, I've had worse. It does come a little bit unravelled, but it's not too bad. It's better than you'd expect. So for a knitting example, I'm just going to use the same yarn, and I'm just going to briefly do a couple of stitches like I normally do. If someone asked me to rate this yarn on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate it about a 5. It's not a bad yarn, but it's not a great yarn. You see, as I'm knitting and I'm casting it on, it's separating a little bit more. It could be a little bit better wound. But when it comes down to yarn, it's mostly personal preference. Because it's quite dense and stiff, it also makes it a bit stickier on the needles. I think someone stole that needle and poked it into a paint pot to open it. It's hard to get in behind them. That's what bothers me about this textured yarn and about splitsy yarn, is it can make it really annoying and it can force you to pull it back. Fortunately, as we've discovered, it's easy to pull this yarn back. But that's not something you want to have to do, because it's difficult. And this is a 0.5 millimetre size up, these needles. These are 5.5s. So it shouldn't, in theory, be too difficult to knit with. The texture is really gripping onto these wooden needles though, and I'm not a fan of that. I would say it definitely looks a bit better when it's knitted compared to when it's crocheted. It increases the, should we say, price value of it. Very surprisingly grippy. It's been a while since I've had a yarn that's this grippy, to be honest. If you would like to get rid of the gripping, I would recommend going up to at least a 6mm, if not a little bit more. Just beware that your work will be gappier. Or perhaps use metal needles. So there we go, we have it like that. It definitely disguises some of the texture, but for me personally, I'm not a fan of that. That's just going to be something I keep coming back to because it bothers me continuously when I use this yarn. That being said, overall I would recommend this yarn for someone on a budget, someone who's looking for just a quick and easy acrylic project. That being said, I wouldn't pay full price for it. I know it's a very cheap yarn, but personally I wouldn't pay the £2.60 for it. I would only buy this yarn if it was on sale for under £2 because I don't personally feel that it's worth it. I've had other yarns within the same price category and yarns even a little bit cheaper than that have been better quality than Paintbox. That being said, also if you're bothered by acrylic yarns and you don't like shedding, this yarn might be something to consider because this is one of the sheddier acrylics. Some colours are worse than others, so beware of that. I've noticed that the lighter colours, like this white, look at that. The pilling, the fluff, it gets on everything, and as I'm knitting with it, I notice it floating through the air. For me personally, that bothers me a lot. Anyway, if you enjoyed this review, please like, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.